Anybody running a D2C company, which is probably you, knows that cash flow is one of the biggest obstacles to scaling quickly. And so in this video, I'm going to walk you through why that is, and more importantly, what to do about it so you can scale as fast as you want to scale without running into cash flow problems, which is what most people in the D2C space have dealt with in your life. And I'm going to show you exactly how to avoid all of that. So before we dive in, my name is Jeremy Reeves. I am the CEO of ScaleAdvisors.com. I'm the author of the #1 best-selling book, The Scalable Profit Model, and I love cash, as I'm sure you do too, right? So let's just get into meat and potatoes of this because this is a really important topic that not a lot of people talk about. All right. There's nobody that's really bridging that gap between like the marketing side of things, the financial side of things, and the operational side of things. And I want to cover the financial side of this things and how everything works together. Because one of the things, if you watch my videos, you follow my content, you know that I always talk about the fact that your business is not one isolated unit. It is a series of levers that, when pulled, create the trajectory that your business has. And if your trajectory is not good, it's because those levers are being inefficient, right? If it is good, then those levers are being efficient. And cash, or what I call capital return velocity, which I'll explain in a sec, is one of those levers. There's 5 of them. There's contribution margin, acquisition economics, lifetime value, operational efficiency, and capital return velocity. So we're covering the last one today, right? The capital return velocity. All right. So the problem is inventory is one of those things that other problems don't have this problem that we do. All right. Um, Inventory is a pain in the ass. We all know it. We all hate it, but it is literally the thing that we sell, right? Without inventory, we wouldn't have a product to sell. Like an information product, there's no inventory. Service, no inventory. Software, no inventory. We're the only type of company out there that has this problem of inventory. All right. So one of the things that's a problem with inventory is the way that people think about it, right? So I talk to a lot of people in the D2C space, and when they tell me that they're breaking even, usually they only mean it on an acquisition basis. All right. So the problem with that is that if you look at your whole what I call capital return velocity, which is just simply when you invest into inventory, acquisition costs, and overhead, which are the 3 main expenses, your business has to invest money into those every single month, regardless of customers, right? Like you need to do them in order to generate customers. All right. When you do that, the time that it takes for you from all the way in the beginning, from you place in general the inventory order and you shell out some cash for that inventory, how long does that take to cover your inventory, cover your acquisition costs, and cover your overhead per customer in terms of actual cash, not profit, but cash? Okay. Profit and cash are very different things. That is what I call capital return velocity. And so when I'm talking to D2C owners, a lot of them know their payback period. They know their how long it takes them to break even on acquisition. Now, some people get it wrong, and they think, oh, I made $100, I spent $100, therefore I break even on day one, right? So we have to make sure that we're doing this on a contribution margin adjusted basis, because if you sell something for $100, but it costs you $50 in variable costs to get out the door, and therefore your contribution margin is 50%. That means that you only have a 50% day one ROAS, not 100%. So we have to clear that out first. Make sure all of these numbers, I'm just going to assume that you're tracking on a contribution margin adjusted basis. So most of the big things like ROAS and AOV and all those things, just put a CM dash in front of them. So instead of ROAS, it's now CM dash ROAS. Just makes it simpler to understand. All right. So in order to know your capital return velocity, you have to know those 3 things. Number 1, how far in advance do you pay for your inventory? All right, so let's just say that for simple terms, it's 100% upfront, and you have an 8-week lead time or 2-month lead time. That means your capital return velocity is already at 2 months, right? Because you gave that money to pay for inventory. And then let's just say that you break even on acquisition within 30 days. Okay, so now you add a month, now you're at 3 months. And let's just say it takes you another 2 months. We'll do 3 months just to keep the math simple. Another 3 months to pay for your overhead per customer. All right, so let's just say again, it takes you $50. We'll say that the CAC is $100, right? And you get that $50 up front, right? So you're 50% ROAS. In the next 30 days, you add another 50 in contribution margin, which means by month one, on a acquisition basis, you are now break even. So now we're at the 2 months of inventory plus the 1 month of acquisition is 3 months, right? And then let's just say that you have overhead per customer of $50, right? And which would simply just mean that you have like 50,000 in overhead and 1,000 customers a month would be $50 per customer. So let's just say that it takes another 3 months to get that extra $50. All right. Well, now it's 2 months for inventory, 1 month for acquisition costs, and then boom, 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 6 months, another 3 months for overhead. So now your actual capital return velocity is not 1 month, which a lot of people would think because they only look at acquisition costs. It's now 6 months. All right. So it's really, really important to understand that. All right. The importance of this, and so like you might be thinking like why is this important, right? With CRV is capital return velocity, by the way. So let's just say you have 6 months CRV, and then you let's just say that you cut it in half. All right, you get a line of credit to pay for your inventory costs, so that wipes out that inventory side. So instead of 2 months up front, you're now zero. So now it's just the 1 month of acquisition and the 3 months of operational. Well, now let's just say that you add a new profit center. Maybe you work with me. I add a new profit center for you because I do this on a performance only basis. And we add an extra $50 in contribution margin per customer in that first 30-day window. Or like maybe we say we just get it up front, right? We figure out something and we figure out how to get that up front. So you are now break even on day one. Well, now you have no inventory and no acquisition because that's all break even basically. So now it's only the operational expense. So now you've cut it down from a total of 6 months to 3 months. Well, what happens is you now have all that extra cash that you can reinvest into your business. So if you do your return on invested capital, and you'd have to do that as a separate calculation, and you get, let's just say that you're making $1,000 or 1,000% return on invested capital, which is basically 10 times your money throughout the first year, right? We'll just say. So you know that you generate you put out $100,000 for inventory, and you know within a year that after you recycle it, it's going to turn into 1,000 or 1,000,000 over a 1 year time frame. All right, in revenue. Well, if you do that, that means you can then double that 1,000% return. All right. So now it's essentially the equivalent of like 20 times your money instead of 10 times your money. Right. It's and again, I have calculators for this. I use it with my clients and stuff. I can't do all the math on top of my head because that would be probably physically impossible unless I'm some sort of math savant, which I promise you I'm not. Unfortunately, I wish I had that kind of brain, but I do not. Right. So that's why it's so important. You have to understand. It's crazy to me that so many people in the D2C space, low margin and lack of cash are the two biggest problems in the D2C space. And yet most people are focused on revenue, and they're not focused on profit, and they're not focused on cash. Do you know who is? Existing 8 and 9 figure brands. They are focused on them. And that's the reason that they were able to scale through the ceilings that you get when you're in your low 7 figures and that sort of range. That a lot of people hit ceilings in the kind of low 7 figure range, and the companies that have figured it out are focusing on all the things that I teach, right? Contribution margin, acquisition economics, and lifetime value, and capital return velocity, operational efficiency. These are all the levers that you need to know in order to be able to scale your company without running out of cash and without running out of profit margin, right? So super, 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 super important to know these numbers. If you don't know your numbers and you want to do a quick calculation, I mean, first, if you know your inventory terms, which I would assume that you do, and you know how long it takes you to break even on acquisition on a contribution margin adjusted basis, and you can figure out your overhead per customer, which I've already explained what that is. It's super simple to figure out, right? Just add those together, and that's your capital return velocity. If you want to walk through this, I actually built a tool for this. It's at tools.scaleadvisors.com/PMA for Profit Model Analyzer. And it models out your whole profit. You can do levers and stuff. So you see, hey, if I increased my operational efficiency by 10%, what does that do to my profit? What does that do to my cash flow? What does that do to my revenue? All the things. All right, so highly recommend you check that out if you haven't yet. Um, with that said, let's get into like how do you improve your CRV? All right. Uh, there are three main ways, and wouldn't you know it, they all come down to the three things that we measure. So simple, isn't it? Don't you love simplicity? I love it. I always like to break things down into fundamentals because it just helps me think clearly, and it helps avoid that like the shiny object syndrome where you have a bazillion things in front of you that you can do. Right? I like I'm a squirrel brain myself, and I have just learned over the years to focus my own brain and put guardrails in place to not allow my brain to get outside those guardrails. Keeps me focused, it keeps me efficient, right? And I highly recommend you do the same if you have a brain like I do, which you probably do because you're an entrepreneur too, and we're all weird and we all have kind of similar brains, right? uh, so let's get into the three things, right? So I'm just going to give you a couple of quick things that you can do for each of these for inventory, acquisition costs, and overhead per customer. So for inventory, right? Uh, this is probably in terms of capital return velocity, this is probably the quickest thing that you can do to improve your cash situation. And so one of them is just simply negotiate payment terms with your manufacturer, right? So if you haven't done that yet, do it, right? See if they will improve your terms. If you're already paying 2 months in advance, 100%, maybe see if you could do 50% upfront and then 50% upon delivery. Or maybe you could do 50% upfront, 25 upon delivery, and 25 a month after. Or I know, like for me, when I had my supplement company, Peak Biome, we went from a 60-day prepay to paying 15 days after the product sold, right? Huge, huge swing. That's like 75-day, not including the holding time that they had, right? So that's a 75-day swing, and basically added all that in working capital. That's 2.5 months worth of revenue that you add to your working capital. Imagine that, right? What would that do for your business? So can you go from like bulk orders where you're paying in advance to a just-in-time system, right? Maybe your manufacturer will do that, maybe they won't. It depends. A lot of factors go into it. It depends on what you're selling. It depends on what manufacturers are out there. There's a lot of different factors that go into that, but it's an option that some people do, and you just have to figure out how to make it worth it for them, right? So it's on you to figure out what would a win-win. If they're going to do that for me, what am I going to do for them? All right. And in my book, I actually walk you through a scenario of this. Um, Another thing could be like, can you do anything on consignment? Can you do inventory financing? Can you get a line of credit, right? These are all options that you can do so that you can eliminate all that extra cash that you're putting towards inventory. I'm actually helping a client right now with some not inventory financing, but a line of credit. So that they don't have to pay it up front. Because one of the things I always talk about, like a lot of people don't want to pay, we'll just say it's 10% for the line of credit. But if you look in terms of return on invested capital, I already talked about this. Let's just say that even if you're doing 500% return on invested capital, uh, I mean, you're literally stepping over 500% on returns to save 10% on a line of credit. Makes no sense whatsoever, right? Another thing you can do for a lot of this stuff is credit cards. So there are certain credit cards that you can get that give you longer payback periods. They give you 60 days to pay back instead of 30. So if you can do just that one simple thing that you can do in an afternoon, it can take it 15 minutes, right? And you get an extra 30 days, that frees up a whole month worth of working capital. All right. And maybe not all of it. Maybe it's just for your inventory or just for ads or whatever it is, or maybe both. But that could free up quite a bit. If it's your biggest expense, which it generally is. I mean, ads and inventory are generally the biggest expenses, maybe labor, depending on where you're at in your business. that can free up a lot of working capital that you can then use to put back into ads to generate more customers, which, assuming you have a high lifetime value, you're going to know that you're getting a really good return from all those people. So there's a lot of things you could do on the inventory side of things. The next one is acquisition costs. So the big thing that I want to let's cover two things. Number one, when it comes to acquisition, your focus is how do I maximize the contribution margin that I collect from a customer on average faster, right? So you should be looking at one of the big things I always do with clients, and again, I have a service for this. If you're like a done for you service where I take all the risk and it's on a performance only basis to increase your contribution margin per customer. And generally, the way that I'm doing that is looking for hidden profit centers. So I'm looking for things that we can bolt onto your business to get more revenue and more contribution margin in the shortest time frame possible, because that's going to help you pay for your acquisition costs faster. Okay. Uh, and so that is really, really, really important. And if this is a sticking point for you, if CAC is starting to get too high, if it's starting to take longer than you would like to pay back your acquisition costs, or if you've had to reduce your volume to meet your CAC that you can afford to pay, I highly recommend that service if you're over $1 million, because it's literally guaranteed extra margin for you, right? It's on a performance basis. There's no upfront fees, all that stuff, and it's literally guaranteed. All right, so that number one is super important. Number two, the biggest thing that I want to impress upon people in the D2C space, uh, and I'm not saying this is wrong. It depends on the variables, but if you are pushing subscriptions, you have to analyze that very, very, very closely, because let's just say that you have a 6 month stick rate on your subscriptions. Let's just say you have some sort of consumable, like a protein powder, a collagen, a supplement, whatever, something like that, right? Where people are using it over time. And let's just say that you want subscription because you like that income, you like that consistent income, and I totally get it. It makes you peace of mind, but I just want to make sure that you're looking at this the right way, because if you have a 6 month stick rate, and let's just say it's $50 a month, right? So you're getting $300 over a 6 month period. Well, if you know that, there's two things here. Number one is, if you have a 6 month stick rate, that does not mean that you collect that $300 in 6 months. Because if you look at how retention rates are calculated, it's the combination of everyone. All right. So you're going to have people that cancel day one. You're also going to have people that are on there for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. I know when I sold my supplement company, we had people that were on subscription for like 5 years. So that's a really long lifetime value. But what happens is you're collecting that, and everything that's taken a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years is going towards your overall average. All right. So that's why stick rates tend to go longer the longer you track it, because of those people, the long term or the long tail effect. The problem with that is, you're not actually, just because 6 months is the average, you're not actually collecting that money within 6 months, because it just depends. All right. So you have to take that into consideration and do the analysis for your business and just see if it makes sense. Because I'm telling you, in a huge percentage of cases that I look at, when I'm reviewing them and they're like, yeah, we want we have a 6 month stick rate and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay, but what if we just rejiggered the offer so that you got that on day one, instead of waiting? In some cases you're not getting it in 6 months. It's like 12 or 14 or 16 months that you have to wait to actually collect all that revenue, right? So why not just get it faster? I mean, in a lot of cases, it makes more sense doing it that way. So again, I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong. It depends. There's so many factors that go into it. So I can't, I'd have to look at your specific situation to see if it makes sense, do an analysis on it. What I'm saying is to look at it objectively and see what that actually takes. Look and find out how long it actually takes to recoup that money, or to collect all that money, and see if there's a better way of doing it so you get it faster. All right. The goal here is speeding up how fast you get the money from your customers. All right. That is the faster you get that contribution margin, the faster you can pay back your acquisition costs. All right. Or if you're already paying your acquisition costs, then you're paying your overhead faster, right? So that's kind of one and the same thing. So now, when it comes to overhead per customer, the big thing with to understand here is that more overhead, the more overhead you have, the more volume you need to break even on that overhead. All right, so it's very very simple. You want to really focus on operational efficiency, which essentially getting very lean. All right, that is the goal, especially with AI now. I am a huge fan of building lean companies and making efficiency across the board because that lowers your overhead per customer, which allows you to scale faster with more margin. All right. And when you do all of these, right? Everything, the good thing that I really like about capital return velocity is that all the adjustments that you make, like if you make an improvement to contribution margin, that automatically increases your capital return velocity. If you add more lifetime value, it automatically increases or improves your capital return velocity. Same thing with operational efficiency, same thing with acquisition economics, right? They all improve capital return velocity on their own because it's just a game of paying for a customer and like what is the sweet point where we are, where we want to go. What is the equation that we need to spend to generate the most contribution margin per customer in the shortest time frame, so we can put that into more volume and then the cycle repeats itself. All right, that is the game of business. All right, and all of this, that's why I teach this 5 lever framework, because it all, when you do this, it helps this one, it helps this one, it helps this one. It's basically just constraint theory put into a framework. I mean, that's really what it is. I am a huge fan of the domino game. Let's tackle one single domino, and when we hit that domino, when we tackle, we remove that constraint, we add that thing, whatever it is, that domino, once done, goes boop, 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 and it knocks over all the other dominoes behind it because of one action. And that is what I like to do when I'm working and building my own businesses, when I'm working with clients, all of the things. So, I guess the final part of this is, how do you track it, right? It's actually not that complicated. Figure out, like, step one is figure out your inventory lead time, which I'm sure most people know that, right? You know, just look at your invoices if you don't know that. Uh, Step two would be figure out your acquisition payback period. So how long does it take you in contribution margin to pay for your acquisition costs? And then third is figure out your overhead payback per customer, right? So again, if you have $10,000 in overhead in fixed costs, per month, and you have 1,000 customers on average per month, that's $10 in overhead. If your operational expenses are 50,000 and you still have that 10,000 or 1,000 customers per month, then it's $50 overhead per customer. All right, so just figure that out, add them up, and then that's your capital return velocity. It is not all that complicated to do. It takes a couple minutes. Again, if you wanted, I have a whole calculator. It walks you through more than just what I did there. And that's so we can actually look at levers. So like I built an actual tool, walks you through. It takes like 5 minutes, not even. And it basically, it's a profit model analyzer. It shows you, how your profit model looks. It shows you what levers you can pull. What happens if you if you improve your operational efficiency by 10% or 20%? What happens if you improve your LTV? What does that do to your profit? What happens if you improve your contribution margin by 10%? How does that change your profit? Right? It's super, super fun tool. I highly recommend you. I'll put it in the show notes below or in the link, whatever. So check that out. Otherwise, that is capital return velocity, and that's why it's important, especially if you're in the D2C space, which I'm assuming you are. Cash flow is probably an issue for you, and if it's not yet, when you try to scale, it will be. So it's really important to understand all this stuff and run with it. So again, if this helps you, check out the book, this Scalable Profit Model. You can get that at scaleadvisors.com/book. You can go to one of the tools that I mentioned. If you want me to help you with all this stuff and improve your cash position, improve your capital return velocity, just reach out. I have services, they're performance only, where we go in, we add more contribution margin to what you're already doing, generally in a guaranteed way of doing it because we're adding something that wasn't there before. So the only thing that we can do is win, right? And that's the way that I like to play with my clients. I like to win, and I like them to win. So if that helped you, give the video some love, give it a like, share, comment below, whatever it is. Review the podcast if you're listening to this on the podcast. I would really appreciate it. I hope that you got a couple insights from this. I hope you take it and I hope you implement it in your business. If you do, shoot me a message, let me know it helped. Otherwise, share it with other people and let them know it helped. And so I appreciate you watching this. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.